AI is such a hot topic, where do you see the potential of it in the future in your industry?
Sure.
I mean, do you see a potential?
I absolutely do, and in fact, we're currently looking at several different applications. I think one big area is just helping us create the initial versions of client-facing documents. So whether it's a report on how our funds did, or it is a PowerPoint that shows relative and absolute performance metrics and all that, you can do a basic version of that with AI. But again, the human authors become the human editors in that context. There's a lot of data analysis that AI can be very helpful for. So if we're looking at, again, massive universe of securities, we're trying to identify particular trends. Having a natural language processing layer where lets me ask a straightforward question like, hey, out of the last times when the Fed funds rate was at 5%, how often did high yield spreads in the US go above 800 basis points? And when they did, what happened to the shape of the yield curve? Okay, like I can ask an analyst that question, they will definitely give me an answer within about 30 minutes. Or I can ask an AI that question, it'll give me an answer within about 3 seconds. So that's where that becomes very useful. And as we think about some of the tools that I'm working on and some of the tools across the broader organization, those are very helpful. I think as we go beyond that, it becomes a bit more of a question of proving out that AI can do really a lot more. At my previous firm, we actually had AI fully trade and invest, and it did in a lot of cases a really good job. But I think the explainability was a hurdle, and that is always going to be an issue with institutional investors. You got to go to a board and say, hey, this is why I delivered good performance, but more importantly, this is why I underperformed. And if you say, hey, we had a black box that didn't do that, it becomes a much more difficult conversation. And I think that's just a reality that we're a ways away from that. And I think trends in explainable AI are getting better. I think there's going to be some groundbreaking developments there. And as we get closer to that, I think you're going to see more firms take on AI for investing. And I think firms like my old one that are at the forefront of that are hopefully going to be able to deliver on that earlier. But it's a massive jump more relative to more operational client-facing and research tasks. How about you, Jeremy?
Yeah, I see a lot of opportunity. It's a little far off. When you're dealing with grid operations, it falls into the category of we may not want to use AI quite yet on that sort of thing. However, accessing knowledge centers, there's firms out there with lots of data from the past, and I take us as an example. We have data going back to 1981 about different technologies that have been adopted and dropped in our industry. Some of the old timers remember the technology they developed in 1981, but the rest of us don't really know it. So having the ability to use something like a GPT engine to access those knowledge centers, and actually that's actually coming in the next couple months. Microsoft, if you actually reach out to your rep at Microsoft, there is a trial period where they can deploy the OpenAI engine on your tenant level. So if you have a lot of data in your tenant, you can actually use the OpenAI engine in that tenant. There's also open source products coming out that are taking that same approach that you can deploy and take that same sort of approach. So this is coming really quickly. It's coming really soon. And I think from a perspective in the immediate future of accessing knowledge centers, it could be really huge. You can envision a point where we're using AI to actually monitor grid operations, where we're actually using AI to sense gas leaks and things like that, where we currently have, PG&E has been using drones to inspect the power lines in really hard to access areas to prevent wildfire risk. But you can feasibly see training AI on what a problem looks like in the field and then training a drone on that, right? So there's a lot of little opportunities in there, but I do think accessing knowledge centers, analyzing infrastructure, and then also looking at dealing with these massive amounts of data that we're generating. So I think those are all areas where we could see it, but I'm very excited about the fact that eventually, in the next couple months, we should see AI being utilized on the tenant level. And in terms of that, the knowledge center area is really kind of my biggest hope right now.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you can hear both of us, again, very different industries, but talking about similar components in terms of like analyzing massive amounts of information, drawing inference from them, creating both anything from descriptive to predictive analytics, I should really say, and automating very tedious processes that can be done by humans, but it would take a long time, as well as identifying trends where it's kind of like picking a needle out of a haystack. I mean, that's a great way that machine learning or AI can really do wonders in. And I think all of that drives towards greater use cases, greater comfort, and greater adoption across all industries.